Hello, everybody. So I've been told by Patsy that today is a solo cast. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you, Nori. Yeah, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable just, imagine that you go to a dinner party or a conversation with a friend and you decide you're going to do a solo cast. In fact, you probably have friends or acquaintances who do that at dinner parties. Now, obviously, this is a somewhat different situation. We are connected on electronic media, and we can't have, I guess at a normal party, a normal gathering, people are kind of mingling and moving around, and multiple conversations can happen at the same time, and you can take cues from the other people's faces, from the way that they stand, the way that they shift their weight, the way that they glaze over or display a spark of interest, what to say. You can gather from those things what to say, when to say it, when to be silent. So we're not in that situation right now. I guess another level that's related to the discomfort of doing it this way is because I don't have those cues. Who am I talking to? In the age of mediation, we talk about media, electronic media. And what that means is that so much of our interaction with other human beings is mediated. So that, and especially if it's social media or broadcast media, you don't know who you're speaking to, really. So there's a kind of an inauthenticity. You can feel that in ordinary face-to-face conversations when you get the feeling that this person isn't really speaking to you. They're not actually seeing you. They're saying the same thing that they might say to anybody. They've hit autopilot, they've got their spiel, their favorite topic, and they sound off about that. And it could be, anybody in front of them, and they would say the same thing, and you feel disconnection with them. And so what I was saying is that as mediated communication infiltrates more and more of our lives, we get a hunger for authentic communication. Because the one thing that you cannot get from Spotify or from Facebook or from a celebrity TikTok account or anything like that is you can't get actual two-way intimacy. You cannot get a person authentically speaking to you. Or if it's Spotify or iTunes, you can't get somebody singing to you. So there's a whole level of nourishment that is absent from this kind of communication that leaves many of us very hungry for the one thing that technology cannot give us. And so I want to, before I go into a hour-long soliloquy, I want to just presence that and not to apologize, but to actually share a moment of sorrow, because that's where sorry comes from, right? I'm sorry. I feel sorrow that this is the case. And that said, there's another level here. Even though we're separated by thousands of miles, even though our communication is mediated through electrons, even though I can't really get the visual cues. I can go onto gallery mode, and maybe that kind of helps. I can kind of see some people here, pick up some cues, and see Nori smiling. That makes me feel very happy. And like, see, that's an example though. Like if I'm talking to Nori and she's smiling, that tells me one thing. If she's tearing up, that tells me something else. And I can, if I'm not oblivious to that, then even if I'm the only one doing the talking, real communication is happening. So yeah, I can go on to gallery mode here and get a little bit, but still, compared to in person, it's not very much. But there's another level, as I was going to say, to trust other senses, subtle senses. Most of us are not in the habit of trusting those subtle senses that operate over space, over time too, because some people will see the recording of this soliloquy. And yeah, there's a subtle sensing of those people too, that senses into the future. And if I am able to trust that and tune into that, then I'm actually speaking to you. I'm not just putting on a show. In modern society, we don't get a lot of practice or encouragement to tune into those subtle senses. We're not even told that they exist. In fact, they might be explicitly denied, in fact, by the scientific account of what is real. Without validation and practice, those senses atrophy from neglect. But today, maybe we are receiving some encouragement to cultivate those senses again. Part of the encouragement comes in the form of the hunger that I was speaking of, the desperation. I bet that people who are in solitary confinement sometimes go through a process of breakdown and insanity. I mean, loneliness engenders insanity. Most people in solitary confinement go crazy. But on the other side of that, and that might be seen as insanity by the rest of the world, on the other side of that, they may find actual companionship. They may find that they are not alone. And the ways that they are companioned maybe were not available without having gone through that process. So in the technological age, many of us are going through kind of a solitary confinement. The avenues of social interaction are shrinking. You don't even, 100 years ago in my country and most places, shopping meant going to many stores and interacting with people who knew you, who knew your story, who knew your children, who knew your parents. You would go to the butchers for meat, the fishmongers for fish, the grocers for vegetables, the bakers for bread. And the tailors for clothing, the cobblers for shoes. And every single person knew you and knew each other. And then 50 years after that, 100 years later, maybe the supermarket. And so you still go. Maybe you recognize one of the cashiers sometimes and a couple people in the store you recognize, but they're not your neighbors anymore. You don't know them usually. And now today, even the further extreme of you order food from the grocery store, from the supermarket, and it shows up in your driveway. It's moving in that direction. So that's just one example of the shrinkage of our contact with each other. People working online, working from home, doing everything from home, intensifying that hunger for what cannot be ordered from Amazon and cannot be downloaded from iTunes, increasing that sense of solitary confinement. And yeah, maybe you're with a couple members of your nuclear family. And I'm exaggerating the case right now, but it's going in that direction. And the hunger is increasing. The feeling of loneliness, of alienation, of separation is increasing. And what I'm suggesting is that that is also an opportunity to discover other forms of contact, other forms of connection that we've been told do not exist, but that are nonetheless real and can exist. Making a distinction here between being real and existing. They're very real and they can exist when we cultivate them and give them attention and trust that they are real. Existing requires the recognition of reality. And so that's my long-winded way of saying that maybe I can actually offer a little bit of what we're hungry for in this interaction, in this moment, that I can speak to you. And there's a paradox. Like, I don't know how many people are on this call or going to listen to this recording, but it's a lot. How can I speak to everybody all at once? Well, and there may be a moment where you just get that feeling, oh, Charles is speaking to me right now. There's this uncanny coincidence of what I'm thinking, what my thought was, what my question was, and what Charles said 2 seconds after that. And it feels like he's speaking to me. And that's not because I have any magical powers. It's because when I tune in to these subtle senses, the administrators of synchronicity arrange the rest. So thank you to those administrators for their ceaseless efforts. In an ordinary conversation, I often spend a lot of time not talking, and the other person talks. Now, since it's just one way, supposedly, if I go into silence, then maybe it's a little awkward. But I'd like to suggest a different way to think about it. Because, okay, first, when do I go into silence? It's when I don't have anything to say at that moment. Very simple. People think it's the rhetorical device I use when I give speeches and stuff. No, it's just like, okay, I said that, and now I'm not ready to say anything else. So, okay. So in a conversation, in a skillful conversation, in a mature conversation, both people, or it could be more than two, but let's say both people all have the habit, all have the discipline of not speaking when they have nothing to say in that moment. And that naturally gives an opportunity for the other to speak. And there's a flow and an ease in that conversation where you don't have to push and wait with bated breath for the other person to pause so that you can say something. You know what I'm talking about? And how you just sometimes withdraw from those. Okay. Now you're not going to be speaking back to me, at least not with vocalized words. Aha. So what happens when I lapse into silence? That gives you the chance to think. And to speak through the subtle channels of communication. And if I do my part in my silence to tune into those, then I will be, again, speaking to you. And the administrators of synchronicity will make sure that that is your experience. And you may be wondering, who are these administrators of synchronicity? That curiosity is kind of a cover for something deeper than curiosity, which is simply gratitude, awe. Curiosity can come from awe, it comes from wonder. But it can sometimes reduce. Once you get the explanation, then maybe there's not so much gratitude anymore. Because now I get it, I understand it. It's not this gift that is just beyond my comprehension. I can't think of a way to say who the administrators are without reducing them to something less than what they are. A related topic here, I've been for the last month trying to write this article or this essay. I think it's almost done. But one of the things that's held me back, on one level, it's just simply fear. Because as you may have noticed, our political environment and social environment is becoming more and more polarized. And there's a lot of hate now that's bubbling beneath the surface and feeding on itself. And whenever I write anything, even if if I come down on one side or another side, then that will trigger hate from the other side. And if I am speaking something that's beyond either side, then, well, each side thinks I'm on the other side. And there's just some basic fear, of pissing people off, especially when things are getting so tense and people are getting so angry, and there's the whiff of violence in the air. We're not a different species here in my country from those who perpetrated genocides on this earth. We're not a different species from Hutus in Rwanda or Nazis in Germany or Israelis in the IDF. We're not made of better stuff than any other human being. And the conditions that breed eruptions of mass violence can happen anywhere, and I think are happening here. This is this rising level of hate and polarization is one of the preconditions. So the fear is not irrational, but there's something else. Okay, it's not actually that. The main thing isn't that I'm afraid that I'm going to be targeted in some way. The other thing that is really holding me back is what I want my words to generate through writing. See, it's the same problem. When through writing, I'm saying things as if they were objective. And writing kind of seems objective. There it is on the page. I cannot write different words to different people. Not very easily. There actually is a way kind of to do that, which is to embed layers of communication into the writing. You communicate one thing through the meanings of the words, another thing through the cadence of the words. But it is very much kind of like you're saying the same thing to everybody. And that, just like the soliloquy, just like the person who shows up at the party, shows up at the conversation and says the same thing no matter who you are, it is distancing. It is almost an insult to publish. Because there you are opening the newsletter, reading it, but is it really to you? I mean, it has your email address on it. If it's a marketing email, it might even say, Dear Nori, Dear Patsy. But it's not actually to you, is it? When you get a fundraising email, has your name on it. That's just a field that got filled in from a database, pretending to be spoken to you. And there's a certain disappointment when you realize that, and a cynicism. Everybody pretending that they're speaking to me and not really speaking to me. So, okay, we're kind of used to that, and we, don't take it. We understand. But then when it gets to something really controversial, really triggering, like if I'm, like, say I have a friend, say, I want to confront, or a loved one, say I want to confront Patsy with something that might be difficult for her to hear, maybe about one of our children or something like that, and I think she's doing it wrong. Like that is a conversation that I would enter into very delicately. I would really make sure that my words are landing, that she has an opportunity to be seen in the impact, to respond. Like that, like if I respect Patsy, I'm not just gonna blast my opinion at her. If it's a delicate topic, I'm not going to do that because I love and respect her. So to broach these delicate, triggering, polarized topics outside of a relationship, it kind of, like I feel an aversion to that. It holds me back a little bit. And that's why I've spent 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe, I don't know, it's been a long time. Like I've started this essay and deleted it and started again and deleted it. I've got like whole files of parts I've removed from it. And I think that this is beyond just being afraid of getting, hated on. I think it's a lot of it is like this kind of respect. Because when you approach something like that without respect, then it hurts the relationship. It sows distrust. It sows anger in the world. People don't like to be treated like that. If my relationship with Patsy was simply us lobbing these accusations at each other, and here, you're doing it wrong. No, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And I don't care about the impact of that on you, then the relationship is going to deteriorate. And boy, this is happening a lot in our society, isn't it? So this is one of the pitfalls of the way that we communicate today. And the antidote, I think, isn't, okay, we're just going to abandon all of the technologies of mass communication. I mean, we have to abandon the book, if we're going to take it that far. That's not the way forward. The way forward is not backward. But it is to trust for one thing, first it is to acknowledge that kind of impact, to acknowledge all that I just said. But then it's also then to trust those subtle senses. And I try to do that. I'm trying. That's why in a lot of my writing, I acknowledge both sides. I preempt certain responses. I'm trying to say, I understand you. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not holding you as morally or intellectually inferior. But there's a limit to what I'm able to do. I try with humor sometimes, I try. But I guess it's my recognition of the delicacy and difficulty of that holds me back sometimes from just throwing stuff out there, So this is where we are right now in a society of advanced separation, that's tending toward solitary confinement. And yes, I understand that none of us listening right now are actually in solitary confinement. All I'm saying is that it's moving in that direction. In comparison to a few generations ago, we are 80 or 90% of the way towards solitary confinement. Okay. And in that condition, yes, like on a very tangible level, there is maybe something we can do to connect with others again in person. I'm not saying to just resign ourselves to more and more solitary confinement on the physical embodied level. No. We can do things once we value that the intimacy and the connectedness that we hunger for, once we value that and recognize it, then we can take steps to bring it back. And at the same time, it may not be easy or possible to truly experience community, full-on community, as our peasant ancestors did or our hunter-gatherer ancestors did. That level of embeddedness in nature and in community is not quickly available for many of us. So in those circumstances, the other thing that we can do, besides materially trying to recover it, the other thing that we can do, that we may be forced to do, is to establish the subtle ties, the subtle companionship that is only available when we recognize and trust our other senses. So that our aloneness, our loneliness becomes a kind of an initiatory gift that puts us in a place where now we must seek another source of what's missing. These subtle senses are innate to us. It's not that some people have them and some do not. We are in, as I said before, a cultural context, an ideological context that denies them. So it may take some intentionality to tune into them again, and then to trust them and then to develop them. A sense that is not used does atrophy. But usually there's still a vestige of it available. It's like when you, I don't know, try to learn to pick up things with your toes, you know, or to try to move your toes independently of each other. Like you can't do it at first, but if you try and try and try, then finally you'll notice, oh, that one toe twitched a tiny bit all by itself. And then you keep practicing, and pretty soon, you know, you're playing the piano with your toes. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but you know what I mean. The very act of tuning into something, of looking for something, brings it to a place where it can be found. But it's already there. As I said before, it's real. It just doesn't exist yet. Attention is what makes it exist. The seeking is what allows it to find you. Okay. Maybe I will join you in practicing. Some of you are probably a lot better at tuning into the subtle senses than I am. I feel like women are generally better at it than men. But again, it's something that everybody has within. So let's practice a little bit. And I will close my eyes, I guess, since vision is the most overriding of all of the senses. So the subtle senses become more available for me when I close my eyes. And our entry point will be the experience of companionship. Your eyes are closed right now, and the main sound you hear is my voice. And you are aware that others, separated in time and space, are listening to the same voice. And now you can feel the presence of those others. They're right here with you. And there may be doubts, doubting voices telling you that you're alone right now. The practice is to trust the sense of your companions. Trust this feeling that you are not alone. This feeling that you can actually sense the others who are now bridged to you by my voice. There they are, right there. And so first, we simply bask in this togetherness. Welcome the companionship. And just do that for another minute or two, and then we'll move on to the next step. Enjoying with gratitude the presence of each other and of others beyond those connected by my voice on this call. You'll start to notice others too. Maybe on the outside of our circle, even the beings of synchronicity are watching. And allow yourself to rest more deeply into the knowledge of our togetherness, perceived by your subtle senses. Okay, and now, among all of these beings, some have human identities and some do not. Beings of goodwill. Because this is a field of love, of welcome, of friendliness, a very safe place. And among all of these beings, maybe it's one with a human identity, maybe it isn't, but one of them now distinguishes itself. And you find yourself entering into a connection with this one. Maybe nonverbal. It's not your ears or your eyes, but it's another sense of the presence of this being. Maybe you know his or her name. Maybe it's one of us, familiar from some other interaction you've had. Maybe it's somebody you've met in person. And maybe it's not. But right now, the main thing to focus on is simply the sense of companionship with this person. It's their soul essence that you are present to. Don't try to get messages. Just be present with this other. Welcome it and draw closer. And at some point, you'll be satisfied with this little visit. Maybe you'll feel the wish to reconnect again in some way through the subtle senses, or maybe you'll send this person a note on WhatsApp. Or maybe it's not a being that uses WhatsApp. And so you come back now. This is step 3. Come back into your solitude. Into yourself. But you'll notice something of this other being is now inside of you. You've been touched. And this little bit of this other being in you, this outpost, creates a channel that you can open anytime you want. And close anytime you want. And communicate. There's a connection now. And so allow yourself a good long moment of gratitude for this new addition to your soul. This companionship. And now bring your attention once again to this whole collection of beings linked by my voice. And when in the next half a minute or so you open your eyes, do so with the intention of holding that subtle sense of companionship, that subtle sense that perceives these others, holding it as you open your eyes so that it is not overwhelmed by the visual sense. Really prepare for that for that opening of the eyes so that you feel companioned when you do so. And if you would like a little booster of that, do try going to gallery mode, and you can see just some of these other faces and names. Yeah. So that was a lot of psychic energy that we used to help each other awaken and strengthen those senses, those subtle senses. So thank you for participating in that. These are the kinds of capacities that are going to become very important. I mean, they were probably always very important, but they are, they will carry us through the coming times. And right now I'm just enjoying the presence of those that I am genuinely speaking to. And in gratitude that it works, you know, that it's real. In the same way that I'm grateful to see and to hear, to be given this gift. You can try it now with your eyes open. Can you still sense these presences? And my wish and blessing for you all is that when you do feel lonely and alienated and abandoned, that you'll remember to tune in to those beings that are actually still with you. That you'll remember to do that, and that you will trust the results. And I wish that blessing for myself as well. I'm not, you know, I'm not the guy who's always in that realization. And I'm very grateful to be the channel of that practice when it's called for by those I speak to, then it becomes real for me as well. So I thank you all for your attention and your trust, and for Patsy inviting me to this what did she call it? It wasn't a soliloquy, a
solo cast.
Solo cast, yes, a solo cast. Yes, Patsy. Thank you for inviting me to the solo cast. And with that, I will say goodbye to you on Zoom and look forward to connecting with you in more subtle ways